later. So, yeah, welcome. And I didn't really know Mike had such a prophetic gift. I know a while back he came up with this series about a world of chaos and had no idea what he was in for by the time he got to preach it. I hope he's not doing a series on the end of the world soon. Got me a little bit nervous. And it is a time, isn't it, that we're in right now? Seems like every day a new level of chaos and confusion, our lives and our world, and yet I have to remind ourselves this is not all new and unprecedented, right? That's one thing I love about the Bible. It's written from the context of chaos, people imprisoned and people in corrupt systems and government and turmoil all over the place. Half the New Testament's written from a prison cell. Most of the authors in the New Testament were put to death because of their faith. So it's got a lot to say about life when things in life look pretty upside down, like a lot of us feel on a day-to-day basis these days. And so the question remains the same for us all the way through. The great late poet Mary Oliver, at the end of her poem, The Summer Day, writes, "Doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" There's great company and great conversation that happens in the perils of the day, but in the end it really doesn't change the fact that everything does die, and too soon. And so the question still for us, how is it and what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And yet these days they're perilous. I like how Mike started this series a couple of weeks ago with that foundational passage. Jesus speaks, we call it the Great Commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. All the law on these two commands. Sometimes when things get really shaken up and chaotic, and it feels like we just don't have a footing anymore, it shakes us back to the very core, which is good. This is Jesus, when it says it sums up all the law and the commands, some 500 some commands and all that. It'd be a lot for someone to hold in their head, and he just say, well, let me just break it down and make it simple. Not easy, but simple. Another one of those basic things we hear, the golden rule. Here's a simple thumb guide for behavior, Jesus said. Ask yourself what you want people to do for you, and then grab the initiative and do it for them. Add up all of God's law and the prophets, there it is again, and this is what you get. And so that never changes. It was written in a time where there was a lot more chaos than there is in our current experience in this time and place. And I just came across a term this week that psychologists have come up with, the happiness paradox. Have you heard of that? The happiness paradox? I think you'll relate to it. It's actively chasing or pursuing happiness as a primary goal can actually, ironically, make it harder to achieve and lead to stress and unhappiness. Let me say it again. Actively chasing or pursuing happiness as a primary goal can ironically make it harder to achieve and actually lead to more stress and unhappiness. Anybody ever experienced the happiness paradox? Because when things start to get shaky, we try to put it back together, and this paradox is, Jesus said as much, right? If you try to save your life, you end up losing it. Oh, man. But if you lose your life for my sake, you find it. For all the talk about the pursuit of happiness from our Declaration of Independence, we are promised this so-called right of the pursuit of happiness, but wisely they never promise the achievement of it. That's a lot harder. We should have the right to pursue it, but to achieve it, how many get that? And Jesus, I think, boils down the way toward it in what we have come to term the golden. It's very counterintuitive. It says that actually when I make someone else's happiness my goal, not enabling or in a codependent way, but when I make someone else's happiness my goal, happiness has a way of sneaking in the back door. Have you ever experienced that? Of course. We all know what that feels like. And he starts it with an awareness. I think that's the gift of the days that we're in, is that we have a heightened awareness of our need and the reality of what's around us and the uncertainty of what was promised to us, and we just took it for granted. So it starts with that awareness, but then rather than the focus of trying to get it met in me or trying to get you to meet it in me, Jesus does this flip and says, go and meet it in somebody else. It's not new in just this teaching. It's God's economy all the way through, sowing and reaping. If what you most need is a crop of corn, what do? You take the corn that you have, and rather than consuming it, you plant it. It's an act of faith, trusting that in time it will come back 100-fold. And so it's always been God's way of providing, is that you give what it is that you most need. That's the ultimate act of faith. You sow it into others. And it begins with a deep awareness of what in me is hungering, what I am longing for. We've all experienced it. It's more blessed to give than to receive. And yet, in times like this, we huddle down, we circle up, we protect, we attack. And yet, as the happiness paradox confirms, it just leaves us isolated and fear-filled and hate-driven. Mike, a couple of weeks ago, brought us to one of my favorite passages in John 7:37 and 38. If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink. When you really know your thirst, Jesus says it at the height of a great festival, a 7-day festival. At the end of it, when people are going to go home, if you still recognize your thirst, come to me and drink. The only one who can meet that. The happiness paradox, it confirms it in psychology, what has long, long been taught in the scriptures. But then it doesn't end with come to me and drink. It says, then out of you will flow, gush, rivers of living water. Never meant to stay with us, just to satisfy us, but to freely flow to others. Certainly in these days, our needs, our desires, our longings, they've been accentuated. The question is, what will we do with them? And when by faith we choose to bring it to God to be met, it sets up this very powerful, life-altering, world-altering scenario. I love 2 Corinthians, how it begins in chapter 1, verse 3. Praise be to the God of all compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. Isn't that beautiful? You, in your trouble, come to God. He meets you, and now you're uniquely positioned to comfort others with the same comfort we ourselves have received. God never wastes pain. It's just far too costly, too precious. Richard Rohr, the Franciscan priest, said, only two things are really strong enough to change us. Only two. Great love and great suffering. Wow, is that really true? Great love and great suffering are the only thing strong enough into. Sorry, I put it back in my pocket. Well, I want to introduce you to a friend, but as he's beginning to speak, just think about for yourself. There we go. Now I got to take my shirt off again? Oh, yeah, just, all right. Well, I'm going to sit. Three microphones to manage this guy. I'm going to take this one. Here we go. So, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, Herbie. And Herbie is our newest staff member at Straight Ahead in Brockton. And as you'll hear, the circumstances of his life were about as chaotic, in some ways hopeless as they get. But God has a way of turning ashes into beauty when we take even small steps. So come on up here, Herbie, and give us a little of your story.
Thank everybody for allowing me to speak with you real quick. Like Scott said, I work with Straight Ahead Ministries. I'm a re-entry specialist. I help kids coming out of lockup to have a soft landing. I try to hook them up with services, job training, and things to help get their lives back on track. But 7 years ago, I was known as W65360. I was one town over in Norfolk, serving a natural life sentence without parole. That means I was destined to die in prison. Now, and it's funny because I'm here today. Thank God. But my story. My story begins in 1996 when I was living in the city of Brockton, right in the middle of the crack epidemic. Like, although I grew up going to Catholic church, CCDs and things like that, and I memorized the Lord's Prayer, I didn't have a relationship with God. I knew of him, but I didn't know him. So let's just say I used to crave something that I didn't know I was even looking for. It's like looking for answers for questions that you haven't even asked. And that was basically my identity. Who was I? What was my purpose? Why am I here? And all I could see outside of my window was flashiness, drug dealers, tough guys. And I kind of wanted to be like them. They had the respect of the city. They had the respect of the neighborhood. They had women. They had flashy cars, jewelry, and money. And I wanted to be a part of that. Without having an identity or purpose, a known purpose, that's the thing that I gravitated to the most. So I became one of those guys. I was a part of a street gang, which I didn't consider it to be a gang in Brockton, but it was a gang. And we sold drugs, we robbed people, we shot people, we did everything that you see on the news. And I got locked up for it, the DYS, which is Department of Youth Services. And it was while I was at the Department of Youth Services that I kind of felt that I earned my stripes. I was locked up now. All my friends have been locked up or did time. And now here's my turn, and now I'm official. Not only do I sell drugs and shoot people, but now I have a criminal record to support that. And I remember one night I'm sitting there just chilling with one of my friends and whatnot, and this DYS staff comes in. He says, hey, we're having a guy come in to talk to you about God. We can either stay in our cells and lock in, or we could go and listen to this man speak about Jesus. Me, I'm planning on, I went, now my whole intention was just to kill time. Kill time until New York Undercover came on, because we had TV time right after that, so I was waiting for New York Undercover to come on. So I said, let me kill time over here listening to this guy talk about God. So I went in, and it kind of took me back, because coming in was this white guy, older, and he started talking about how he was a father and a husband. I instantly turned him off. Like, I didn't want to hear that. But then he talked about this guy named Jesus, and it caught my ear. I'm like, I heard of this dude. And he started talking about having a new life, transformation, not ending your life the way you started. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Tell me more about this. And he started going on and on about how he himself had changed his life, how Jesus entered into his life and transformed it. He described one night how he stumbled home and was in his backyard and he passed out. He woke up the next morning realizing he had 2 kids, a pregnant wife upstairs. And here he is, yet again, in his backyard next to yard waste and trash barrels, falling asleep. And he said right there and then, he got on his knees and he asked Jesus to come into his life. And his life changed. So I'm like, his life changed? How did your life change? And he started talking about a transformation that happened, how day by day, the more he walked towards Jesus, Jesus came closer to him. And I was saying to myself, I want this. I'm over here thinking that I'm destined for hell, that I was too bad for God to care about me, that I was too bad for God to have time for me. And this guy's over here telling me that I can get a do-over. I don't know if you guys remember Nintendo, but the only thing that I can think of is pressing that reset button and getting 3 new lives. So I kind of waited after the service was over or the discussion was over, and I secretly asked him, I said, hey, man, real quick, how do I get what you got? And he said, when you go to bed tonight, ask Jesus to come into your life. I'm like, that's it? All right, cool. So I said, cool. New York Undercover came on and went off, and then it was time to go lock in. So when I locked in myself, my practice back then was I had a cellmate. We'd talk about the streets, we'd tell jokes until we fell asleep. So we did that, but I knew I had something to do. I was excited about doing something, so I couldn't wait till he falls asleep so I could secretly ask Jesus to come into my life. So he passes out, and I'm like, word. So I'm laying in my bunk, and I can remember just saying, Jesus, come into my life. And in that moment, there was a light. Now, this is the part of my story that I tell people to accept it or reject it. But this is what happened to me. Like, I didn't see a light, but I felt a light. And in this light, I saw my future. The Lord revealed to me the path that I was on and where it was going to lead me. He told me that I was going to have trouble with the law. He told me that my cousin, who was more like a best friend or a brother to me, he'd be murdered. And that I'd serve time afterwards. But it would be during this time that a real transformation would take place in my life. And I'm like, I wake up the next morning. So I thought about it, but I didn't really think about it. I just knew that something was a little bit different. Fast forward a week or two, I'm back on the streets, and the vision, the guy who came to speak, all that was stuck to the back of my mind. I didn't even remember it. It was just, I was back on the streets, I was back around my friends and my boys. All that was planted, the seed that was planted, it left. So, got locked up again. I came out the summer of 1996, around early August. And this is real hard for me because it still hurts. But 2 or 3 weeks after I left, I came home, my cousin was murdered. And it was one of those situations where I spent the entire day with him. And I'm going to tell you about my cousin. Like, when I grew up, he was the first, older boy that took me under his wing. Showed me how to dress, showed me video games, music, how to talk to girls, what not to say, what to say, and things like that. So he was a confidant, somebody that I really, hung on to. And when he passed, my whole world turned upside down. Like, you can imagine a love a son would have for his parents, but I had this type of love for another individual, and now he was gone, and I didn't know what to do with myself, so I was bent on retribution. The culture taught me and even encouraged that individual retribution is how to make my pain go away. It's to go out and kill somebody else in order to make my pain go away, and that's exactly what I did. And in the process of that, I too was shot. So I get locked up, bullet hole in my arm, scar on my hip, and it was while I had surgery while I was locked up, and then I went to a regular prison cell. When I was in this regular prison cell, I remember I'm just laying in my bunk one night. I have a cast on my arm. I can barely walk, and I'm just laying there, and then the dream came back. Everything that the Lord had revealed to me came back in that very moment, and I just started crying. I was so confused. I'm like, I thought God was good. Why is this happening? What's going on here? I couldn't take. I didn't know what to do. But that's where God needed me to be. The Bible teaches us that the Lord, He doesn't want sacrifices. Because if it was sacrifices, if I could kill an animal and wipe away my sins and change my life, I would. If I could pay a price and change my life, I would. But what the Lord required was a broken and contrite spirit. He wanted me to get to the end of myself in order for Him to start working with me. But I'm human. I was trying to serve two masters. I was trying to hold on to my faith on one aspect, but then I was trying to hold on to the street cred that I built up. And God was like, that's not what I want for you, my son. So through years, 22 years, 2 months, and 5 days, that's how much time I spent in prison. And it was during that time, through Bible studies, through prayers, through being mentored through different chaplains, the Lord actually changed my life. I became one of the guys who was receiving help to one of the guys who was actually giving help. And I didn't even realize when it changed. I didn't realize when it turned. And then one day, I'm watching the news, and on the ticker tape it says, Supreme Court overturns, Supreme Court rules that it's cruel and unusual punishment to sentence somebody under the age of 17 to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And it affected 62 dudes. I was one of them. So literally, I went from chaos, living in a living grave, to freedom and life. Now, to go back a little bit, that individual that came in and talked about Jesus for the first time, that had me pray for the very first time in my life, was from Straight Ahead Ministries, unbeknownst to me. I say I'm a straight ahead kid because it's where straight ahead planted the seed. It wasn't until years later that the seed started to grow. And now, moving forward, I'm over here at church, hanging out. My pastor comes to me. He says, hey, we have an organization that wants to, that's looking for some volunteers to go in and out of the DYS. We think you'll be a good fit. And I said, hey, yeah, I'll do that. So I started going in and out, and again, things are starting to come back to me. I'm like, I'm hearing different things that was similar to how I got my faith, and I wanted to be a part of it. It was an easy choice, but I'm just going to keep going. God is great, and I just wanted to share with you that there is life after prison, there's life after sin, and there's hope after despair. Like, I'm living proof of it. I was a kid who thought that I was destined for hell and that God didn't even care for me. Today, now, like, I'm somebody who I can say that God has had his hand in my life, and he's been moving with me. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, that I've reached a pinnacle or anything. God can work through you while he works on you. And my message today is to encourage you guys, hopefully, you know what I mean? That because God is great, he's a mountain mover. He removed a mountain that I thought would never be moved, and I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Herbie. I do read your e-newsletters, and I read recently about a group maybe going into Norfolk prison. And that's where you were. And when you go into a place like that and you meet Herbies, and you just don't know what impact you have on somebody who now is standing here ministering to us. That's God's economy. Takes the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. The other thing I think of in your story is be faithful in little, and I'll entrust you with much. He was one of our prayer partners in there for years. We sent prayer requests of kids who were locked up. Not waiting for the world to get better to act, but acting in order that the world might get better. And there's so many stories like that. Just want to close with a formula. A plus B equals C. It's mathematics time. You all learned that. And while I'm not a mathematics major or all that good in, it does tell me that the sum of both sides of that equation equal out. And though it can feel in these days quite powerless, and what could I ever do to impact the world? There's so many problems. But this tells me that whatever happens on the input side is going to affect the output. And so if you call A the current reality that we live in, this chaotic world, and B is you, then when you shift, it changes the other side. Maybe it becomes a C+, maybe it becomes a D, but it has to change. The other side has to change when you change. That's good news. And now the next formula, maybe it's more like D plus B equals, see, this is as far as I can go with math, but you get the point. And the point is that your shift shifts the world. And one formula I do know, and that is God's plan A to change the world, it involves us. And He doesn't have a plan B. It's like, you're it. We are it. And so if we just give up and just lay back and just like, it's just too much, then what's going to happen? God's not changing His plan. Tony Campolo, I remember he used to say that when we get to heaven and are tempted to ask God, why didn't you intervene in more powerful ways in such a messed up world? And He might likely respond, I was about to ask you the same thing. Second Chronicles says the eyes of the Lord go to and fro over all the earth, looking for someone whose heart is fully devoted to Him. That God is continually searching, knows all the needs in a Norfolk prison, in a DYS facility, in a nursing home, in a crack house, in a family that's in distraught, searching for someone whose heart who's fully devoted to Him. That's the plan A. And so Isaiah 6, Lord, send me. It's a prayer worth praying every single day. And notice how God will do it, that as He's gazing the whole earth to and fro, looking for someone whose heart is just ready to be nudged, to move into that space. Takes us back to where we started. Doesn't everything die at last? And too soon? Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Let's pray. God, it's such a marvelous work, transformation, beauty from ashes, life from death, light out of darkness. It's so good that you freely, abundantly share it with us. And it is your work. It's not up to us to create light, create all of this, but to be reciprocal, conduits of your great grace and love for this world, now, this moment, the day that we're in, for such a time as this. We're here at this place and time, and there are many, many others who've gone before us in worse times. Thank you for Herbie, and that even the most desperate life without parole in a prison cell, being faithful changed the outcomes, and the outcomes changed the reality. Use us, send us, Lord. We pray. Amen.
If you would please stand for our closing song, Search in My Soul.
I've been down this road, walking the lines painted by pride, and I have made mistakes in my life that I just can't hide. Oh, I believe I am ready for what love has to bring. Got myself together. Now I'm ready to sing. I've been searching my soul tonight. I know there's so much more to life. Now I know I can shine a light to find my way back home. One by one, the chains around me unwind. Every day now, I feel that I can leave those years behind. Oh, I've been thinking of you for a long time. There's a side of my life where I've been blind, and so I've been searching my soul tonight. I know there's so much more to life. Now I know I can shine a light. Everything's gonna be alright. I've been searching my soul tonight. Don't wanna be alone in life. Now I know I can shine a light to find my way back home. Baby, I've been holding back now my whole life, yeah. I've decided to move on now. Gonna leave all my worries behind. Oh, yeah. Oh, I believe I am ready for what love has to give. Got myself together. Now I'm ready to live. I've been searching my soul tonight. I know there's so much more to life. Now I know I can shine a light. Everything's gonna be alright. I know I've been searching my soul tonight. Don't wanna be alone in life. Oh no. Now I know I can shine a light to find my way back home. Baby, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I've been searching my soul tonight. Oh,
Go with this blessing from Psalm. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. Go in peace. Have a great week.